Hey, free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So the update details are already out. So as usual, I'm going to split this into two videos. The first is going to go through the new Espers and the second will be for like the rest of the content, right? So let's start with Gaius. Zeus, he's a 5-star flow attune. Previously, he was actually a 5-star Inferno. Okay, you know what, it doesn't really matter, right? So let's start. Gaius is a very strong fighter Esper who is able to switch between normal mode and the God King mode, granting him 2 sets of abilities. So this is a little bit complicated, so stick with me, alright? So his first ability, Thunder Strike, deals damage to one enemy based on his attack, extends all their debuffs, and stuns the enemy. Now in his God King state, this is called God King Thunder Strike, deals damage to all enemies based on his attack, has a chance of stealing enemy buffs. So from his normal mode to his God King mode, the difference here is just instead of extending debuffs and stunning the enemy, he then has a chance of stealing enemy buffs. So this is like a strip, right? So in the God King state, he becomes a stripper. But the thing that I'm really curious to know is extends all their debuffs and stuns the enemy, which comes first? I'm pretty sure that the extension comes first before the stunning, but if the stun comes first, his first skill can stun for a couple of turns, which is pretty sick, but I don't think that that's the case. Okay, so moving on to his second ability, we are only going to talk about the Ascensions, right, so that we don't waste too much time. Now do take note that one skill is called Thunder Judgment, which is his normal skill, and in his God King state, it's called God King Judgment. Do not be confused by the word judgment over here. Okay, so for Thunder Judgment, after Ascension, summons lightning to attack random enemies multiple times, deals damage based on his attack, prioritizes attacking different targets, and deals decreasing damage to the same targets. You then dispel all buffs from each of the targets hit and inflicts buff blocker. This is insane. So his second skill in his normal phase is essentially a strip that also inflicts buff blocker. This is really good. Really good. Top tier. Now in his God King Judgment state, summons lightning to attack random enemies multiple times, deals higher damage based on his attack, prioritizes attacking different targets, and deals decreasing damage to the same targets and inflicts buff blocker. So there is a main difference here, which is actually, you can think of it as like a nerf, because from him being able to strip buffs, he now only applies buff blocker. That's about it. So then you might be wondering, then what's the point of going into his God King state, because his normal mode is a lot better, right? I'm going to talk about some of the strategies that I think applies to him, and yeah, we'll discuss that in just a bit. But first, let's move on to his third ability, Thunderstorm. Do take note that there is also a God King Thunderstorm state. Using Thunderstorm, he switches to God King and gains another turn immediately. I'm pretty sure that this would then reduce all his buff durations by 1 turn, so do take note of that. That could be a big thing in a negative way. Then you gain a shield based on his attack, extends his own... Okay, yeah, I just corrected myself immediately. So because he gains a turn, he actually loses 1 turn of his buffs, and I kind of forgot about this, but yeah, he extends his own buffs afterwards. And then he resets his God King Judgment's cooldown, which is his second skill in his God King state. And now his third skill becomes God King Thunderstorm, switches to normal mode and gains another turn. Grants a shield to all allies based on his attack, extends his own buffs, and then resets Thunder Judgment's cooldown, which is his second skill again. So entering any of his 2 phases would reset the respective second skill. And you then reduce Thunderstorm's cooldown to 1, which is essentially his third skill over here, right? So that means that when you go back into your normal state, you can go back into your God King state on your next turn. Now, in the God King state, you will receive another undispellable buff, which is King of Gods. It changes all ability effects, which is whatever that we have just talked about, and you increase crit rate, deals bonus damage upon attacking. So that's the catch of the second skill, which I talked about earlier, which is what's the point of using your second skill if you're going to be losing your dispelling effect? So obviously the reason is because you're going to increase your crit rate, which could be important, and you deal bonus damage as well. So in his God King state, his second skill becomes more of a damaging skill rather than like a utility skill on his normal mode. And this part confuses me a little bit. So in Gaius' normal mode, his passive ability increases accuracy and Seer is inflicted upon attacking. So I'm a bit confused, like he does not have a passive ability. So well, is this like a hidden extra ability somewhere? But the thing is, this is pretty insane. So he has increased accuracy, which means he has a greater opportunity to strip buffs and land buff blocker, and to stun and all that on his first skill, right? And the thing is, he also inflicts Seer upon attacking. Now in God King mode, increases crit rate when attacking, deals bonus damage based on target's max HP, which is the stuff over here, the buff that you're seeing over here. And this leads me to believe that the passive that they are referring to is probably not a passive, it's probably like a buff that stays on Gaius the whole time. Okay, so there are some strategies that I'm seeing over here, right? So what I think is probably a good way to use him is to run him with Astral Witchcraft. Okay, so let me explain. He will start off with his second skill, which then strips everyone and then inflicts buff blocker. And given his passive effect over here, he would then inflict Seer as well. And if he procs his Astral Witchcraft that way, or let's say you have Fabrice who can give him back his turn again, he will then use his third skill, Thunderstorm, to enter the God King state, which then gives him another turn, which extends his buff duration as well. And this would allow him to go back into his second skill again, which is his God King Judgment here. And at this point of time, you do not need to strip buffs anymore because you have already stripped the buffs beforehand. So that means that you're going to deal a lot of damage based on the enemy's max HP with increased crit rate as well. So this is going to deal a lot of damage. So yeah, I feel like this buff blocker is not that necessary anymore. So that's essentially the main thing that I'm seeing in his kit. But the interesting thing here is that after he uses his second skill in his God King mode, he would be able to proc his Astral Witchcraft again because he has gained another turn during his skill itself and not based on Astral Witchcraft. So essentially he has another chance to proc Astral Witchcraft again, which would then allow him to go back into his normal mode, and he can just technically rinse and repeat and recycle this endlessly as long as you have the RNG on your side. So yeah, he is definitely very strong. Definitely very, very powerful. He honestly puts Zora to shame, man. But of course, some of you guys might be wondering as well, Astral Witchcraft is very RNG focused. Then what can you do? Yeah, like I said, just use a Fabrice, he works the same. Now moving on to Li Guang. This is the Vermilion Bird, a 4-star wind attuned Esper. Now Li Guang is a speedy single target fighter Esper. So she's kind of like a support Esper in my opinion, even though she's stated to be a fighter. Okay, so her first skill, Bright Flames, attacks an enemy multiple times based on her attack. Each hit increases her AP by a certain percentage. I'm not sure what this is, and I'm not sure how many hits this is. This can be pretty huge. Now her second ability, Fetching Fire, attacks one target multiple times, deals damage based on her attack, and deals bonus damage based on her speed. Each hit steals the target's buffs, so it strips on her second skill, and upon stealing, extends her own buffs. She might be quite interesting. I'm not exactly sure how this works, so if you steal like 3 buffs, does that mean that you increase your buff duration by 3 turns? If that's the case, I'll be quite interested to test her out for a little bit, right? Now, her third ability, Dazzling Sunfire, increases all allies' AP and attacks one target multiple times. Deals bonus damage to the target based on her speed. So she's another AP pusher, which is really good. So this is honestly really good. So the thing is, most speed cleave comps are currently running with like Unas and Dahlia. And the thing is, right now without Unas, you can definitely run her as well. So you're going to start off with Dahlia, and you can use her as a secondary AP pusher as well, which makes her a really good off DPS in my opinion. If you can give her a lot of speed, or rather just enough speed to capture the Dahlia's difference, then I think she has a lot of utility as a secondary DPS. And do take note that she can be drawn from the Gold Record player or Super Sensors. I'll talk about what that is in just a bit. Now next we have Nick, who is going to be the free Esper that you can obtain from the event shop. So Nick is a controller Esper who can extend enemy ability cooldowns and inflict silence. So Nick's first ability, Stone Fist, deals damage to one target based on attack, has a chance of inflicting attack down. This is quite a useless first skill. Now his second ability, Landslide, attacks one target multiple times. Each hit deals damage based on his attack, has a chance of extending a target's ability cooldowns, and after Ascension, upon successfully extending, reduces his own ability cooldown. So this is either really good because he can then throw in more skills, right? Or it can be quite garbage. Or not that the skill is garbage, but he is entirely garbage because his cooldowns are already super long to begin with. I have a strong suspicion that his cooldowns are going to be quite long for some reason. Now take a look at his third ability here, Skyfall, attacks all enemies based on his attack, dispels enemy shield, and silences the enemies. Each enemy's silence increases his own AP by a certain percentage. I'm quite curious to see how this works. But clearly, you know, using his third ability that gives him more AP, he would have an easier time getting to his second ability, which then decreases his own ability cooldowns afterwards, which is quite interesting. But then again, we'll have to see whether is he good or not based on the actual numbers in his kit. But obviously he's going to be decent with Ocean Waves because he gives himself AP, and he also reduces his own cooldowns, which it just helps a lot with the flow of like bouncing between his skills. Okay, so I'm just going to end the video off over here. I do feel like Li Guang is a really good Esper to have. Her being a secondary DPS and AP pusher at the same time is a very big deal in speed cleave comps. And guys, it's going to be so good. I'm very sure that, you know, just going by the kit that he has, even if you do not proc the Astral Witchcraft or you do not give him a second turn, he is still going to strip buffs on his second skill, which is huge. But still, then again, we will need to test him out to see whether is he really that good or not. He's essentially a controller and a DPS Esper 2-in-1, basically. Alright, so that's it for this video. We are going to end it off over here, and I'm going to make another video covering the rest of the update details. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a comment if you have anything else you want to add on to this, whatever that I've talked about. And if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more dislike content. Now with that said, this has been Derry Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.